The Golden State Warriors need a shakeup of their roster in the worst way possible. After blowing yet another big second half lead, this time against the defending champion Denver Nuggets, this loss, of course, not even close to being as bad as the 26-point lead the Warriors blew to the Kings in the in-season tournament. And with the Warriors currently sitting 2 games below 500, outside of the play-in the Western Conference at 11th in the standings, it is all but clear this roster isn't it. Change needs to happen, a big splash, something, because if they keep this roster together, it's very likely you're looking at a team that could miss the playoffs with how stacked the Western Conference is. A big shakeup needed to maximize Steph Curry's window, a window that is closing ever so quickly. What does a shakeup look like for the Warriors? Well, let's talk about it. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribe to help the channel grow, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, back when the Warriors won their first title and then went on to set an NBA record of 73 regular season wins in the following season, Warriors owner Joe Lacob often liked to brag about his team being light years ahead of the competition and how he didn't see any reason why the Warriors couldn't continue to dominate and keep this run going. In his view, why couldn't they be like the San Antonio Spurs, who were one of the best teams in the NBA for nearly 2 decades? Well, the reality is the concept of building these 2 timelines, a younger core that would eventually succeed the older big 3 of Steph, Klay, and Draymond, could have worked if they actually built a second timeline around the right players, if they had actually hit on their draft picks like the Spurs had done so many years ago. I've mentioned this before, but as much as people like to talk about Bob Myers being some genius of an executive that built this dynasty, you have to remember Myers did not draft Steph Curry, nor did he draft Klay Thompson. That was under the Warriors' previous regime before him, and while he was in the front office when they drafted Draymond Green in 2012, he was the assistant GM at that time. And when it came to developing the second timeline for the Warriors, you're talking about a number 2 pick in James Wiseman that was one of the biggest busted picks in recent memory, so bad that they had to trade him for pennies on the dollar when he was struggling to even be competitive in the G League. They drafted Jonathan Kuminga 7th overall, who has actually turned into a solid player for them, a good starter, but also still an inconsistent player, and I wouldn't say is a player who has star-like potential. And this, of course, selecting Kuminga over guys like Franz Wagner and Sengun. Moses Moody, who can't even see the floor right now, they took him with their second lottery pick in 2021. They drafted him 14th overall. Now, they took Jordan Poole late in the first round in 2019, which initially looked like a gem at number 28 with the way that he was able to come in and contribute offensively, but of course, he got a little too cocky for his own good. Draymond Green tried to send him to another universe with that punch in practice. Poole struggled the following season and was clearly not the player they saw in that championship run, of course, after getting a fat contract, and so they traded him. Got off of that contract, but had to give up draft capital in order to do so, and brought in a 38-year-old Chris Paul, a player who is on the brink of retirement. So as much as Joe Lacob wanted this forever dynasty light years ahead of the competition, the fact of the matter is they have made some very poor decisions in building this roster for the future, a future after Steph Curry. And now you're looking at a situation in which Steph's final years, a still dominant and elite player, even at the age of 35, is being wasted into oblivion. Klay Thompson clearly isn't the player he used to be, struggles to maintain any sort of consistent play, has been wildly inefficient on offense, isn't the strong defender he used to be in his older age and after multiple injuries. He's playing in a contract year and is letting that get to his head and being so focused on his performance that it's negatively impacting the team. Draymond Green is unhinged, a loose cannon, insecure, recognizing that his heyday in the NBA is over. Andrew Wiggins looks like a player who played his best basketball in a contract year, got paid, and then decided he didn't care about the game of basketball anymore. For a contract that looked like a bargain at the time of the signing, coming off that championship run in 2022, to now a contract they're likely going to have to incentivize some team to take on by including draft picks to get rid of. Chris Paul, bringing him in was a mistake. That hasn't worked out for them. Kevon Looney, down year. Gary Payton can't stay healthy. You get the point. Things are crumbling down for the Warriors. The dynasty is ending. And they're kind of just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, trying to figure out what to do. What is their next step? Is there a way they can somehow salvage this season by making a substantial trade or trades that would still enable them to be competitive, possibly even compete for a title? Now, you look at the Warriors and how they've done so far this season, and you see that this is an okay team on offense. They're 12th in offensive rating in the league, top 10 in the NBA in points per game. They still shoot threes at a high rate, although they're middle of the pack when it comes to three-point percentage. But where the Warriors really struggle is on the defensive end. 22nd in the league on defense. They commit way too many fouls, top 5 in the league in fouls committed, which in turn has also led to being one of the top teams that actually gives up the most amount of free throws. They're in the bottom 5 in the league in blocks and steals. They give up way too many threes to their opponent. They're 20th in the league in points allowed. And then going back to offense, the Warriors turn the ball over at a very high rate. They're able to get up a lot of shots because they play fast, but they also miss a lot of shots. The days of the inefficient Warriors offense is over. They're currently 24th in the NBA in field goal percentage, which has been the lowest for them as a team since their first championship run in 2015. So a lot of weaknesses, a lot of areas that need to be addressed. They need high-level defenders, and they really need a reliable second scoring option next to Steph Curry. Because Klay, as well as Andrew Wiggins, they can no longer be trusted as guys to be reliable scoring options on a nightly basis. And of course, they got rid of the player who was putting up 20 points per game off the bench in Jordan Poole. Now, I think the immediate option that comes to mind, a player that is likely on the move from his current team that would be a great fit with the Warriors, with his dynamic scoring and overall style of play, is Pascal Siakam. After the Raptors made their most recent trade and moving on from OG Anunoby and getting younger with RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, it's pretty clear they're wanting to build this team around Scottie Barnes for the future, which means Siakam isn't going to fit their timeline. He's also on an expiring contract, so the Raptors would obviously love to get something for him in return rather than letting him walk for nothing in free agency. And luckily for the Warriors, they have a player with the requisite salary to get Siakam, and that's Klay Thompson. And I know some Warriors fans will say the Dubs are never going to give up Klay. He's been with this team since he was drafted back in 2011, but with his expiring contract, Klay not the same player he once was, and the Warriors still trying to be competitive, but also keeping their future in mind, it would not surprise me if they move on from Klay Thompson. And so a trade could go something like this, because the Raptors aren't just going to trade Siakam for Klay straight up, because Klay wouldn't be a part of their long-term plan, so why give up Siakam for nothing? So instead, the Warriors would need to include a first and second round pick to get Pascal Siakam. The trade is really more about maximizing Steph's window, because Siakam at 29 and needing to re-sign him to a longer-term deal doesn't really bode well for your overall future beyond Steph. But if you want to try and make one last push to get a title with Curry, that is one step in that direction for this season and potentially next season. And then what was the other thing we mentioned the Warriors need? Defense. Now, Draymond Green being out, and who knows when he's coming back, that obviously impacts their defense, and you'd have to think their defense would be better if Draymond wasn't a nut job and putting people in headlocks. And whenever Draymond does come back, their defense should improve a bit, but it's not going to be enough. And for the Warriors, they need an elite perimeter defender. Who might that be? Well, how about Alex Caruso? Now, as a diehard Bulls fan, I want no part in trading Caruso, unless it's for a significant haul, because as I've mentioned before on my Bulls channel, Caruso's value, his impact both on and off the court, is unmatched in terms of the hustle, the energy, the mentorship, and leadership that he brings. And not only that, he's also having one of his best seasons offensively, shooting the three ball at a high rate. And don't forget, he's also on a very team-friendly contract. At the same time, though, I also recognize that Caruso is one of the Bulls' most valuable trade pieces in their lineup. And for the Bulls who are kind of sitting in basketball purgatory, I also recognize that moving him, especially while his value is high, could very well likely be an option. And for the Golden State Warriors, a team that is desperate to get back on track and make a big splash, adding a hard-nosed defender, a player with championship pedigree, bringing in a player like Alex Caruso is just what they need. Now, it's going to cost the Warriors a lot. It's going to cost more of their future, which probably isn't the right way to go, especially when their younger timeline isn't looking so bright. But given the Warriors and all the moves that they've made last season or so, they've made it clear they have no intention on blowing things up and starting over, but are doing everything they can to take advantage of their superstar's window while they still have him playing at an elite level. For them, it's let's figure the future out later. We've got one of the greatest players of all time on our roster, the greatest shooter in NBA history. We need to keep pushing for a championship. And so a trade for Alex Caruso could look something like this. The Warriors would get Alex Caruso, Andre Drummond, while the Bulls would receive Kevon Looney, Kuminga, and a future first-round pick. I know the Warriors fans are going to say, I'm nuts for giving up Kuminga and a first for Caruso, but you have to remember, Caruso's value is incredibly high around the league for his versatility on defense and becoming a legit 3-and-D player in the NBA, one of the better 3-and-D players in the league. And with his team-friendly contract, also the fact that the Bulls have said they have no interest in moving Caruso, you're going to have to offer a lot for him in the form of young players and or draft capital if you want to get him. And a young player that the Bulls can use for their future and a future first-round pick, which could be juicy considering the pick will likely convey after Steph retires, would probably be too much for the Bulls to pass up on to move Caruso. And then swapping Looney for Drummond in the deal, this is more so for the Warriors to finally have a legit traditional center that can crash the boards and be a stronger presence in the paint. And for the Bulls, Looney is a younger backup five they can work with for the next couple of seasons to see what he could potentially do. So in short, The Warriors in this instance do a big shakeup of their roster by bringing in Pascal, Siakam, and Alex Caruso while moving on from Klay Thompson, Kuminga, and Kevon Looney. They give up future draft picks to do so, but again, when you have a player like Steph playing at an elite level and knowing that level of play from Steph is only going to last for so long, you have to do everything in your power to maximize that. Now, do I think by adding Siakam and Caruso means that the Warriors are going to win a championship? No, not for this season, but it can position them going into next season to make some additional moves in the offseason, whether it be through trades or free agency acquisitions, to really build a title team, which I think next season is very likely will be the last good season of Steph Curry as we know it. It's also very possible this season is going to be the last elite year that we see of his career. The Warriors know that. The league knows that. And this is a step in the right direction to make this final push before Steph eventually sets off into the sunset of retirement from the game of basketball. Let me know what you guys think though. What do you think the Warriors can do to shake up their roster and try to maximize Steph's window? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.